legendary Celtic family to the program. Dee Brown joins us. Man, welcome back. It's so good to see you, my brother.
Now, it's always good to be seen, so I'm never going to definitely complain about that. But thanks for having me back on the show. I appreciate you guys.
No doubt, man. We've been seeing you a lot in Celtic City. We'll get to that, but I want to start here.
Yeah,
We're boys, D. So we tried to book you a while ago, and you say, "Hey, I have knee surgery. Let's move it to this."
Yeah,
so now you're on the mend after surgery. Surgery went well. Can you talk to us? Well, Ante probably knows more about this than I do as an athlete, but can you talk to regular guys like me and take my audience into what it's like post-playing career? You know, I'm sure you had to get knees cleaned up, and we were talking about off-camera bad feet and different injuries and things like that from your playing career. Just take us behind the curtain of what it's like post-playing career health-wise for you and other players.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's, being a 90s player, the game was a lot more physical, and the technology wasn't as advanced as it is now. We didn't have cryo chambers, and, we had one masseuse for one player for all the whole team. Vladimir, if anybody knows Vladimir in Boston, he was like the team masseuse for a long time. Travel was different. My first year we flew commercial. So it's just a lot different. And then Larry said his back hurt, and then we got a plane. So that was how quick that changed. To get our charter plane, but it's just different, and as you get older, you're playing with your kids and on the court, things like that. I had hip resurfacing done a couple years ago. I had some knee stuff done just to stay healthy. Be able to be on the court. My daughter Lexi, who plays in WNBA, my son who plays college basketball. So I always want to be involved with their training and development. So I got to make sure I get my yearly tune-up to make sure my body is good so I can go out there and perform and play. But it's a lot different. I mean, we talked about it, earlier. Superstars in the past didn't play 12, past 12, 13 years. You got guys playing 18, 20 years now. Oof. We just your body just took a beating so much. And like I said, it's the technology to keep you healthy and the recovery stuff that they do now. We just have access to that stuff in the 90s.
Yeah, but I tell you what, D, I mean, the mentality is different too, because your era and before you, obviously, I mean, you played with immense pain. You played through pain. Nowadays, guys, what I noticed, D, guys will tweak something. They're out for a month. So I feel like mentally, though, not to sound like an old man here, D, but mentally, your generation and before you were tougher, right? Is that fair to say, or am I being a hater?
Yeah, I don't know.
Am I a hater, D?
I don't want to say I don't know if we're tougher. We had to listen. We had to do it what it was. Right. That's what it was. Like that's what we have access to, and the rules were a little different back then with the injury reserve list and active and inactive list like they have now. Back then you got hurt and, you had to go on the injury reserve list. You had to miss 5 games or 10 days, whatever came first. Right. The guys didn't want to do that because you never got your position back or you lost, minutes or, you didn't get a chance to play, and they can keep you on that list as long as possible. So there's a lot of different mentality. So I don't say the guys are softer now. Injuries are injuries. Like, I wish I had an instrument that can measure pain because everybody's pain tolerance is different. If we had that, that's different. Playing hurt, playing in pain is 2 different things, and some people can't tolerate a lot of pain. That's human nature. So I won't say guys are softer. I just think the way we had to deal with certain injuries to be able to keep playing and competing based on the technology and medical information we had is a lot different than they have now.
Now, Ante and I here on Hold My Banner talk about Celtics City all the time. And in the latest episode, D, you were prominent in this episode. And the last time you chopped it up with us, we talked about your late great friend and Reggie Lewis. And I remember you also shared with us a story of how you found out you were traded and all that. So, it went into that in this episode, D. But one thing Ante and I, learned about you that we didn't know was a story you told that was horrific of basically a case of mistaken identity where the cops here in Boston rolled up on you and pulled out guns on you because they thought you robbed a bank. For people who aren't watching the show or aren't privy to the story, can you take us back to that time? What the heck happened there, D?
Yeah, it was. I had just got drafted by the Celtics, and I was trying to find. It was like after the draft and the free agent camps and all those things like that. So it was you know a time where I was trying to find a place to live in the Boston area, and there's different neighborhoods. My wife was from Cambridge, um, so she knew about a lot of the areas up there and stuff like that. Um, but it was, I was going to Wellesley. It was a nice area, obviously outside of Boston. And I was at a post office just trying to get my mail because I got my mail forwarded from Jacksonville from college to get my mail, pay my bills, just get ready for the season, getting ready to move to Boston. And I guess the bank that I was across the street from where the post office was, I got robbed a week or 2 weeks before I was there. And I think again the story is that one of the tellers saw me walk into the post office and called the police and said that the person that robbed the bank a week ago, was across the street at the post office, and he's there. Um, and that's how the police got dispatched. They thought I was the bank robber. I was in my car with a pen in my hand. They thought it was a gun.
Hmm.
They told me to get out of the car, face down on the ground, put guns to my head, drop the gun. I said it's a pen. So it was very, I won't use traumatic, but it was, a situation where you want anybody to go through. And one of the reasons why, I felt that I won't word saved, but didn't get shot or, put in handcuffs and taken to a police station. A couple of fans walked by and said, "Hey, that's the guy that just got drafted by the Celtics a few months ago. That's not no bank robber." So I kind of got saved by true hardcore Celtics fans that knew who I was because I had just got drafted. Um, and then, obviously I didn't get arrested. I didn't go to the police station. It's just kind of like, okay, mistaken identity. It was tough, and, the one thing the couple things that did come out of it, I did move to Wellesley. And I still moved there after that. Loved my time there. It was a great city, great people, but a lot of things changed. I think the chief of police had to retire. The mayor. There was a lot of education on, racial biases in Wellesley and outskirt cities in Boston. And I didn't get any money from it. I didn't sue the city. To me, it was more about the education part of why does this happen, and people want to use Boston as a racist city, so that just gave them more fuel to use my experience to do that. And I never, from that day, I never felt threatened by anything in Boston, as far as people, being a racial insensitive to me or my family. I always go back, hey, was it a mistaken identity? A black guy in Wellesley with the same type of outfit on that the bank robber had before, and the lady just being nervous and cautious. I never met the teller. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know if she was black, white, whatever nationality she was. So I have no clue. Her racial biases might have came in from being robbed or her traumas as well. So, being 21 years old and being away from home for the first time, yeah, it's a tough situation. But again, I still have family in Boston. My wife's from Cambridge. My oldest daughter, Lexi's born in Boston. So I have a very, very big heart for the city of Boston, the things they've done for me and my family.
Yeah, and I've been through some similar things, not to that extent, you know what I mean? But I think, being a black man in America, sometimes we all have experiences like that. And when I went through it, I was even like in the city that I was in, I was like, I don't want to ever come back here. I don't want to ever stay here.
Right.
What kind of was your mentality? Because you decided to stay. You talked about how you decided to move to Wesley, and then you thrived.
Yeah.
You went on to have a great career, a great run with Boston, all the great things that you did.
Yeah.
What was your mentality going into that situation and the decision to stay?
I don't let a few bad decisions from people that are maybe not education, black people, different people with different backgrounds to influence my decision on where I want to live or where I want to be. And I had Robert Parish had a basketball camp in Wellesley at Brandeis. At Babson College. So we did a lot of stuff in the community. It wasn't like I lived there and just kind of stay to my house. I was always in a Wesley community, from doing different camps or community events, doing things for the city. So my mindset was like, this is where I want to live, and I thought it was a beautiful neighborhood. It was easy. It was close to get to practice, because at that time we were practicing at Hellenic College in Brookline. Then we moved to Brandeis College when I was there. So, for me, I had the right to live where I wanted to live. And like I said, after the incident, I never had any problems, issues with people, my neighbors, people that came to my basketball camp while I was in Boston.
Yeah, you brought up Robert Parish there. How much did you guys at that time talk to those older, black players that played for the Celtics, like him and Bill Russell, about racial relations or race relations in Boston before or during your time while you were here?
I talked to them all the time. Again, I had to lean on lack of knowledge of the area because it's a new area for me. No matter where you move, if it's LA, Chicago, New York, you got to know whatever color or race you are, where not to go for certain neighborhoods. That's just being cautious and smart. And I talked to Robert a lot. I talked to Dennis Johnson a lot, who passed away. The DJ was a guy that I would lean on as well. Guys like Reggie, Reggie would let me know because he was there a couple years before, and he went to Northeastern, so he knew Boston. And he would tell me all the time, like, listen, he loved Boston, so I love Boston. So, when you hear from people that came before you, and not saying they didn't have any issues or nothing happened to them, for whatever reason it was, it didn't affect my influence on the way I felt about the city of Boston.
No doubt. Another thing Celtics City did a great job of is telling the Rick Pitino story, the saga. And you and I, you've already shared with me and Ante and our audience about how you learned, how you got traded and all that. But I just wonder now, because Ante and I have met the older, mature Dee Brown, right? So I wonder now, as you kind of look back and reflect, Dee, what do you remember from that time? What did you sort of learn from that Rick Pitino saga? And by the way, not retiring a Celtic, because we all feel like you should have retired a Celtic. 100%. What did you kind of learn from that? Did you really maybe learn the true business side of sports maybe?
Oh, I learned it quick. Oh, you learned it real quick. And like you say, when you feel like you're going to be in an organization for your whole career, especially the things that I went through, bookend between Laney Bias passing away, the big three retiring, Reggie passing away, and then drafting Antoine and Paul. I was the glue gatekeeper of the Celtics between those eras. So you would feel like, what, when things start getting good again and we start building up, and you want to be a part of it, you want to be part of the uptick. The Celtics, and I didn't have the opportunity to do that because I got traded. And you learn about the business part. It's business. It's never personal. But you talk about the Rick Pitino part. Some of it was personal. And I think I explained that on the show that it was no former Celtics. We don't want any of the old history around. I want to dismiss that history of the Celtics. This is a new generation. We don't want to tie together. And that was the only personal part that I took. And I took it because I was, there for a long time. I was there in the old Boston Garden. I was there with Red Auerbach. I was there with, obviously the big three. I was there with the transition to the new arena, different players I played with. So, you learn that real quick that, as much as you want to be somewhere, there's certain things you don't have any control over when people want to make decisions on your career. And, you got to, buck up, be disappointed. I was very disappointed. I'm not even going to lie about that. I think I stated it on the show. I was very hurt that I got traded, and not because I wasn't valued in Toronto, because that's who wanted me and that's who traded for me. I felt hurt because how it went down, and I knew that I did so much for the organization. Your payback at the end is kind of like, okay, we're just going to push you off and dismiss you, and hopefully everything will be fine in the future. And that's the part that bothers you the most.